we ask ourselves, how can we make this continent a continent which is a magnet, which attracts us and makes us retain our people in this continent? That is our constant struggle. Many are families that are persuading their children, go out there into Canada, go out there into Australia, go out there into the United States of America and get a second citizenship just in case. Just in case. Why? We must ask ourselves. Because we have not created conditions that make it conducive for us. This is a contradiction of the age-old saying that wherever you go, home is always best. In the minds of most of us, home is not best. And we are gathered here today to consider how we can reverse that anomalous situation. And we can. We are talking about you who are in different sectors of the industry, going out there and rolling up your sleeves and telling this generation and generations yet to be born that it can be done and that it must be done. One of the greatest disadvantages that we have in Africa is that we are always starting things. One generation starts and it ends, another generation starts and it ends. One of the adverts that I love is Johnny Walker, born in 1862 and is still walking strong. And the reason why I love it is because there must have been a succession plan. There was a succession plan. That is why nearly 200 years later, they still claim that they are making the same flavor as it was in 1862. Do we have companies that will go to heaven with us? Of course, the companies will not go. They'll just suffer here, bankruptcy and insolvency and all. These are the questions that we must ask ourselves. And I'm suggesting to us that those of you who are in industry, all of us must have this succession plan. Because that is what leadership is all about. Leadership is about preparing the next generation. Leadership is about creating an environment that ensures that those who come after you are better than you. And there is no greater recompense for a founder than to create an environment where those who are following him or her are going to thrive in a much more robust environment. Today, Africa is asking herself many questions, and these are questions that were asked. They are foundational questions. Foundational questions because when we were fighting to regain our independence, we were making promises to ourselves that we would be in a position to feed ourselves. We would be in a position to exploit our resources. We would be in a position to create our institutions. The question is, are we doing so? I remember in that very spirit, in 1980, African leaders sat in Lagos in Nigeria and came up with what was called the Lagos Plan of Action. The Lagos Plan of Action, which was to run between 1980 and the year 2000, had one promise, that we are going to ensure that there is intra-African trade. And when you want to have intra-African trade, there must be free movement of peoples. There must be the open skies. After the Lagos Plan of Action, we had the Yamoussoukro Agreement in Yamoussoukro in Cote d'Ivoire about the movement of aircrafts in our spaces. We had the Kigali Agreement on the free movement of persons. We had the Maputo Declaration. We had the Malabo Declaration. No shortage of declarations about what we are going to do. No shortage. But the question is, what have we done and what are we doing? Then in the year 2013, and it's not lost on me, we came up with Africa Agenda 2063. That is Africa's grand agenda. If there is anything that we have now promised ourselves is 2063, we can make our contribution now, because in order to get 2063, we've got to break it down into year 1, year 2, year 3. It is cumulatively that we do it. There is a great African saying which I love, that when a river gets into the ocean, it loses its name. We are mere rivers getting into the ocean of life. And when we get into the ocean, we no longer talk about rivers. We talk about the ocean. And we are telling you that that is what we must do under Africa Agenda 2063. And what are we saying about Africa Agenda 2063? That we as Africans shall have a respected and a respectable voice in the world scene. And what does that require? That our politics is right. We elect men and women who can serve us and who know that service is leadership. That we can feed ourselves, that we can take care of our affairs, and that we can participate in the world affairs on an equal footing with others. And that is only going to happen if you men and women who are present here and others who are elsewhere recognize that Africa must begin to trade with ourselves. We now have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And we are telling ourselves under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area that we are going to eliminate tariff and non-tariff barriers. That if